is like gamelan music, like from which some American bookstores have written with, it has like 32 intervals instead of just 8 in the Western music system. And it's really interesting to listen to that kind of stuff because it's really mind bending.
Yeah, I think that's another one. Is one of the things that we can do is we can, to some degree, and it's partly why we like to go to foreign places, is that we can see and hear and come to appreciate things quite different from the ones where we start. But it takes typically some work and effort on our part, just like learning a foreign language does, can be very time-consuming and difficult to appreciate the blue-footedness that's made available in that culture, whereas the one that's made available in our culture is very good. So when we look at what people find stylish or beautiful, this is all much changed with the ease of travel and commercial. And so nearly everybody looks the same the world over. Once upon a time, national costumes were different and people dressed up in quite different ways, and women look different and men look different. And going there would be a sort of shock to the eye. My goodness, that people do things differently. Well, here's the thought that you want to have about at the bottom of all of that, is the reality, right? So the fact that we can all learn a natural language, and then the fact that there are lots of different ones, right, reveals that our social systems, right, aren't fully determined by the level of our genetic capacities, right? A lot depends on what's available for the expression of those things. If you're in Vietnam, you express them in a pitch language. If you're here, you don't, but that's the way to think about it. And our love lives are like that too, right? So the underlying chemistry doesn't fully determine the social forms, right, that it expresses. Does that make sense to you? Yeah.
It does.
Okay, good. So sometimes when we want to appeal to the underlying chemistry, so when we say, for example, we're genetically determined to, or there's the gay gene, what we have to recognize is that that gene couldn't find expression in gay sex if there weren't sexual organization. So if there wasn't, for example, already a division, a social division between one kind of person and another. If we didn't make that division, there wouldn't be a way to express that this way. If you have a thought like this, I wonder if Plato would have been a good violinist. Right? The thought you're having is, there were no violins when Plato was around. The violin wasn't invented for many centuries later. And we're in that position too, right? You could be a great bluglu player if only there were bluglus. But they won't be around for another 10,000 years. And so your life is quite different from it would be if you lived when there were bluglus. You'd be, right? That's a very disturbing thought at one level, but it's also a very liberating and freeing thought too, which tells us that even now, where our capacities, this is a result not just of our genes, but of what's made available to us. So all the women who are in the class have an opportunity to find self-expression, to find things for themselves that they wouldn't have been able to find before there was higher education for women. Right? All the non-white people, right, wouldn't have been able to get find a way of expressing themselves, even if they had the right genes for it, right? They still wouldn't have been able to become world-class mathematicians or historians or whatever, because they were prevented from taking the next steps. So we have to see those facts about us too.
I wonder if the like saying that it's making too much of a value statement. Is like, for example, you say you had the genes to do this thing. Is like those genes are even made themselves, made things that can be understood in terms of their ability to be intelligent or to do certain activities by way of the condition that makes them such.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make I don't think it makes sense to speak of you're always reconstructing history by going back and saying oh, if you had done this then. Because precisely the site of what supposedly becomes something that's done now is made something that exists by way of the occurrence.
Well, that seems to be true in some cases, but so the thought is, Actually, social reality also determines genetic underpinnings and vice versa. Of course, there's got to be some truth in that because development tells us that genes are selected by success rates in reproduction, and those are going to be filtered in part through different social structures, so that's going to select for the genes. So there's some really great cases. I mean, for example, our capacity to digest milk, that's not available to many Asians because they haven't developed in symbiotic relationship with dairy farming and so forth. And that's true about gluten intolerance, which is widespread now and widely recognized as some part of an adaptation to what kind of diets are available. And so the people who die from eating the gluten get filtered out of the wheat-eating population until only the people who can digest the gluten are there. And that's true for a whole set. And in some cases, like sickle cell anemia and malarial, defense against malaria go hand in hand. So it can be an upside and a downside to genetic fitness. You're quite right, that's a mistake to think that. But it's quite reasonable, for example, to think this. Right? So this is one of that somebody could have the capacity to be a great mathematician, but they don't get the chance to do it because they're not in a society where mathematics is developed. Right? And so we can help ourselves a little bit to the thought, even if you're quite right. If we tell the complicated story, we have to weave back in again that social structures affect genes. So let's go back now to, in the lab, we give you a closing thought before we stop. Let's go back to Socrates for a second. Next time we'll pick up on Diotima and look at it. So the Socratic thought is, right, love is a kind of desire, desire is a kind of emptiness. And there's another thought that goes along with this, which is that the questioning can reveal an emptiness, which where previously you thought you didn't have. So Agathon doesn't think he needs a story about love. He's got one. But he's wrong. It's a bad story. And so notice that you get these two thoughts, right? You can create desire by creating unwitting emptinesses in the other part. Emptinesses they didn't know they had. Right? And that's a very important fact about our desire structure, is that it's not fixed. We can come to desire all kinds of new things by either being shown that we need them, or by being led to believe that we need them, or by being led to believe that they would make us whole or fill an emptiness or make life better. And if that weren't so, right, we couldn't have a consumer society. We'd already have fixed little desires looking around for fillers, but there'd be no such thing as the thought of, you know, I want an Aston Martin, not a Lamborghini. You couldn't have that thought, right? Because there'd be no such thing as wanting either one of those things. You know? You'd just be looking for the stuff that you've already got holes for. But those holes can all be rearranged and changed.
Well, but I think you can't say I want an Aston Martin over a Lamborghini, but you can like say, if you're living in other sense, like, oh, I want 4 horses on my carriage.
I want a mode of transportation.
Right.
Yeah, but that itself is an interesting one, right? So, I mean, the only thought I want to have is you're right about the fact that you can have broader categories of and then specifications, but there can be others where there's just no thought whatsoever about how you would hook that into a more general class.
Right.
But advertisers and manufacturers are endlessly finding ways to poke a hole in us. It's not like they come to the one already, it's that they come and they say, now you want something, don't you? Don't you want this? Don't you? Right? That's the thought. So let's come back to, and I want you to read the Diotima really carefully. It's very interesting. There's a lot of material in it, and I will talk about it. We'll probably spend next week talking about it.